and welcome to Excessively Diverted. I'm your host, Sammy C.
I'm your other host, Bo North.
And today we're just here to tell you a little bit about what we do here at Excessively Diverted here on the show.
A very special mini episode for Austen and August, which we're thrilled to participate in.
Yeah, really excited to do this. Just to give you an introduction, why don't we go over kind of who we are, and then what we do on the show, and then we'll talk a little bit about Jane, our favorite subject.
Yes.
So I'll start. I'm Sammy C. I am a writer and general enthusiast of all things literature in Portland, Oregon. I am here with the illustrious Bo North.
Yes, I'm Bo. I am a Jaff author. I've also written some contemporary romance. So not just Jaff, but most of what I've written and have published is Jaff. I met, Sammy and I met through Facebook. We met through a podcast group, actually, funny enough. So we knew we already had that in common, but a mutual friend of ours, John McCoy, has a wonderful, wonderful podcast, literature podcast called Sophomore Lit, and he's basically rereading all of those books that you were made to read in high school and saying,
right,
does your perspective change over time, and, you know, how does your experience, affect, your experience of reading this book? So Sammy was on the Pride and Prejudice episode, and I was on the To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yep.
Yeah, so as soon as I saw her name pop up, I was like, oh, okay, I have to be friends with this person. And at the time, I was recording my other podcast, the Jaff Cast, which is all about Jane Austen fan fiction. Mm-hmm. And I asked Sammy to come on, and she'd never read Jaff before.
No, I hadn't.
So it was a mini first, our first time interacting on, in person, as it were, and our first time discussing Austen and her first time reading Jane Austen fan fiction, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so kind of later on, the podcast that we met over is a podcast about bad movies, and so we have a common enthusiasm for movies that don't always quite hit the mark.
Right. Inept or cheesy or whatever, what have you, we enjoy those very much.
Yeah, so there was an occasion where Bo was watching Sense, SCENTS, and Sensibility, and was posting about it on Facebook, and I very excitedly responded because I love watching modernizations of Jane Austen, especially if they're really weird. And that one is extremely weird and extremely low budget. I we're gonna get into this later, but I would recommend that episode. It's very silly. Yeah. So I kind of excitedly started talking to her back and forth, and our friend Josh was kind of watching this exchange go on. He was like, you guys should start a podcast, because I was recommending other Jane Austen modernizations that you could watch, and you were like, oh, I've seen that one, or I haven't seen that one, and I'm interested in that one. And
we were like, yeah, we should. We totally should. It still took us a few months to get our act together, but once we were ready, we sat down and we came up with a list of movies, and as you know, modernizations are they're definitely a finite resource in the Austen world, so we've had to dip into some things that don't quite fall under that umbrella. Sure. I mean, we've done Death Comes to Pemberley.
Yeah, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which isn't exactly a modernization, but it's a modern take. Yeah. But really, long story short, Excessively Diverted is kind of a fun, goofy show.
Yeah, I mean, we get to drink, which we're doing now. Yeah. We get to have cocktails and talk about Jane Austen movies, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we discuss modernizations of Jane Austen's work on screen. We don't discuss modernizations that are written because that would take the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, this podcast would never end. That's what the Jaffcast is for.
Yeah, exactly. It's really fun, and right now we are in the middle of doing the Lizzie Bennet Diaries.
Yeah, which has been so much fun, and I said this in the first episode that we did, when Sammy said we have to do Lizzie Bennet Diaries, I'm older, quite a bit older, and for me, the idea of watching a web series is just very exhausting. But watching this has been like, it's completely changed the way I look at both web series and modernizations, because I feel like this is such an excellent interpretation of the original novel, and I feel like it's one of the most true to text.
Yeah, it's certainly the most modern of our modernizations.
Most definitely. Until they come up with one that's set in the future.
yeah, one that's set in the future and is, like, told only through, like, telepathic
Darcy
links.
Bot 2000.
Yeah, or something like that. But anyway, since it is Austen August.
Yeah.
I thought we could talk a little bit about why we care about Jane Austen, why we spend so much time talking about her, you know, I mean,
why we can never, even when we're not doing the show, we're still sending each other links.
I know, and we're, like, getting in long conversations about Austen's work, whether we're on or off the microphone, and, you know, doing a podcast like this means that we're spending, like, 3-something hours a week at least engaging with Austen's work.
Yeah.
Either whether that's talking about it or watching a modernization or, you know, really thinking about what this means. So, Bo, what does Jane Austen mean to you?
Well, it's kind of funny because I came to Austen late in life. I did not read Austen until I was in my mid-30s. I had just been laid off. And I had all this time, and I was reading everything I could get my hands on, and I had decided to go through, and I've done this before, like, watch every version adaptation of Jane Eyre that had been made, and Amazon, they'll recommend, like, watch next or whatever. So
sure,
the 2005 Pride and Prejudice popped up, and I was like, all right. And I watched it, and I was like, okay, that was pretty good. So then I bought the book, and I read the book, and I was like, okay, that's amazing. Like, that is, this is, like, a pivotal moment in my life, because I've been very dismissive of Austen, like, I feel like a lot of people are. I've just been like, oh, it's fluff, it's light, it's English, like, what does that have to offer to me? And it really, like, it literally changed my life, because I started reading it, and then I started writing Jaff and publishing it, and, you know, that's why I am where I am today. So, I owe Jane a lot. Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, for me, I came to it in a completely different way.
Right.
When I was in high school, I did see the 2005 movie of Pride and Prejudice first.
Yeah.
And then when I was in high school, about a year later, I read Pride and Prejudice for the first time. And I, this just shows you what a nerd I am. It's like, every time I was going to read, like, a really famous or revered author, I was, like, so excited. And I wouldn't read them on my own, because I would save that moment for when I was in school, so that I would do my homework and I could talk about it. Yeah. And so, like, I felt that way about Shakespeare. Like, I'll never forget when I was, like, in 7th grade when I first read Shakespeare. I was, like, it was, like, a big day. I, like, went to school and was like, we're gonna start reading Shakespeare today. Like, and I felt the same way about Jane Austen. I was like, oh, I've heard about Jane Austen, and everybody talks about her, and I can't wait to read this. And I immediately fell in love with Pride and Prejudice. Yeah. And from there, my senior year, I was able to do, when I was in, like, an AP literature course, they wanted us to kind of read some books and some novels independently. That's when I read Mansfield Park and Sense and Sensibility, so that I could reference them during the AP test. Yeah. And then my love of Austen continued into college, where I met a professor who loves Jane Austen about 3 times more than I do, which is
scary,
incomprehensible. Yeah. He tears up talking about Jane Austen on a regular day. And so one time after class, I was like, you know what, Dr. Stanfield, I would love it if you taught a Jane Austen class and we just read all of Jane Austen's works.
Wonderful.
And in a semester and talked about it. And he was like, you know, I've thought about it, but I never knew if anybody would be interested. And I think that comment, and I had kind of mentioned it to a few of my friends, and they mentioned it to him, so, like,
it snowballed.
He recognized that there was enough interest so that he did it, and so I had a blast that semester, because I was reading Jane Austen, all of her works, and writing about her, and just having a great time. I guess for me, I'm always drawn to women writers who are fearless. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Jane Austen doesn't get enough credit for being so fearless, and also for the fact that she invented a style of narrative that didn't exist before her. She was a genius.
Yeah.
And she's the reason why novels are the way they are today. And I've loved her academically. I've loved the people I've met through her works. I've loved her as a fan. So, I love Jane Austen.
So about the show then, like,
yeah,
we have quite a few episodes under our belt now. I mean, we're still less than 30, but
yeah.
Which ones have been your favorites so far?
My absolute favorite, because it was so fun to record, is From Prada to Nada.
Yeah, and that's my favorite too, because and I don't know if it's the best one to listen to.
Yeah,
but it was the most fun for us.
We had to pause many times because we were all crying.
Yeah, we were laughing so hard.
Because we were laughing so hard. And let's see, the last few episodes where we've done the Lizzie Bennet Diaries have been fun because we've it's given us a little bit of room to address, like, other issues.
Yeah.
At the end of the episode, we've gone on some end of episode rants that have been really good.
Yeah, I would say that, like, the episode 3 or part 3 of the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, you have a great kind of, I don't want to say rant, but like a great, you have some things to say about.
I would say manifesto.
Right. Well, it's more about, like, the think pieces that were coming out around the time of, the anniversary of Austen's death, and how there's this culture of, like, shaming Austen fans for loving Austen.
Right.
In the literary world, and that's definitely something worth listening to, I feel like. And you'd like the episode, too. I mean, that was a good chunk of episodes. So.
But I would also say, everybody loves Bridget Jones's Diary. Everybody loves Clueless. If you want to know if our show is for you, I would say go with a movie you're familiar with.
Right.
And start there.
For me, I would say, like, I believe the Jane Austen Book Club episode was pretty good.
Yeah.
And as we said already, Sense and Sensibility was a lot of fun to record. First of all, because we don't get a chance to do a lot of things that are non-Pride and Prejudice. So it's always kind of a nice relief to be able to do that. And secondly, because we had a couple of friends of ours, Skinner and Josh from the Predicto cast, were our guests on that episode. And two guys that I know that Skinner has read Austen and seen a lot of the movies, but Josh had never done either.
Right.
So it was kind of like a whole new world.
Yeah, exactly. But, at the end of every episode, we talk about what would Jane think.
Yeah.
Because we're very presumptuous in assuming that we know
Hubris.
Jane's inner thoughts.
Right.
Of course we do. We are closer to Jane than anyone. And honestly, like, if I were just to describe this podcast, I would just say it's like two people who really, really love Jane Austen.
And silliness.
Just
and drinks.
Having a good time. And if that appeals to you, whether you like Austen or not, we have a lot of fans who've never read Austen, too.
Yeah, it's true.
And, it's just kind of, I would say it's just like a chill hang with some people who like to yell about Jane Austen.
We have opinions!
I particularly have very loud opinions. So, if you love novels, if you love books, if you like to drink and yell and curse about books.
Especially Jane Austen books.
Check us out.
Yeah. Please do. We would so love it. You can find us on iTunes, on Stitcher, basically anywhere you can find podcasts. We have a Facebook page where you can follow along and see what's coming down the pipe, what we'll be doing. we are kind of running out of things to watch, so it is still very much in discussion what we're doing next, but Excessively Diverted will continue because I feel like there's always going to be more Austen adaptations coming around.
Oh, yeah.
We really have to look at Hallmark's, like, winter roster because there's always something.
I am hoping Hallmark will really come through for us this year.
Yeah, come on, Hallmark. Northanger Abbey, Persuasion, get on it.
Do it. Even I would take a Mansfield Park from Hallmark. Can you imagine how unbearable it would be?
It's been a while since there's been a Mansfield Park adaptation, so I think the Billy Piper one was the last one. So let's get on that. Let's make that happen.
Yep. So anyway, we're Excessively Diverted, and happy Austen August.
Yes, thank you, Book Rat. Thank you, listeners. Oh, and we should toast.
Yeah.
So
toast
to Austen in August.
To Austen in August.
Thanks, everyone.